Howdy, folks, and welcome to Moose Podcast number 197. How you folks doing? I hope you're all safe and sound, doing great, and moving forward. I want to thank you guys, as always, for all you've been doing, even during the summer break and even during these weird times. You guys keep plugging away and pushing the Moose Podcast out to others. I am grateful. So thank you so much. Also want to thank my great friends there at Bedford Camera, bedfords.com. They keep getting stuff to me right now. WRR10s, they're like gold. They're just like the most precious metal. They got me 2 more. Thank God I needed them. So thank you, Bedford Camera, not only for supplying me, but for sponsoring the Moose Podcast. So remember, folks, head there. They've got great advice, great product, great prices, great service. And when you check out, either via the phone or the web, make sure you put in that discount code MOOSE and over $100, some free shipping, no sales tax. It's worth it. Bedfords.com, folks. Thank you, guys. Well, let's get right into this week's topic, as if I know what this week's topic is. So, what's the topic? Well, to be honest with you, I don't have one right now. I have nothing in my head. I've had the absolute most amazingly productive, chilled, laid-back week of photography down in Madera Canyon with some dear friends, hummingbirds and photographers. And I have to tell you, no great thoughts came to my mind. I just kept on shooting. But then again, a lot of times I go out, and it's kind of the same way as I've started this podcast. I have literally no clue what I'm going towards. Especially up here in Montana, I'm looking at going back to old haunts, old stomping grounds, seeing what's there, what's new, what's changed, what's still around. Sharon and I are going out to some new places that are further afield than we went before. And we actually have nothing in mind other than the fact that we have a couple sandwiches in the cooler and some drinks, full tank of gas, off we go. And it's amazing how if you just stand up and take a step, right foot, left foot, that no matter what direction you're pointed, you tend to go somewhere. Photography is that way a lot. We put a lot of pressure, I think, on ourselves to have a direction, have a purpose, have a subject, be it a big one or one in the viewfinder. And we kind of forget that, life is just an experience sometimes. And photography, just an experience sometimes. And you might come back with just the experience, not a single click in the camera. I mean, just thinking back, just a couple days ago in Madera Canyon, my dear friend Auntie had these, brought them out. She said she brought them every year. These little personal, quote unquote, personal hummingbird feeders. And, they're probably the diameter of a salt or pepper shaker. They're maybe an inch tall. And the idea is you hold it in your hand and hummers can come and feed from your hands. And you might be saying, well, really? At Madera Canyon, it was like given. She had, I think, 4 of them. And instantly, put one in your hand, then boom, there's a hummer right there. I had one at literally the end of my 180-400 lens on the lens shade. Some people put them on their top of their micro boxes for the light modifiers. And the hummers would just come right in. So a couple things right off the bat. When you're so entertained, it's hard to take a picture. If you've got a little feeder in your hand, and how you gonna, operate the camera, do stuff like that? That takes a little bit of, time. And that's okay. One thing that I brought home to me, we had 2 instances. One had a little Costas And, hummingbirds, they're chasing each other around and boom, and hit the window, being chased. And it had the wind knocked out of itself. And typically, when birds hit a window, the reason why they pass away is because they go on their sides or their back and they're not physiologically built to pump blood, that way. They need to be upright. So, one of the tricks is to simply pick them up gently and get them upright and let them catch their breath. So, that's what I did. I stopped shooting, went over, picked up this Costa, had it in my hand, I don't know, 8-10 minutes, enough time for people to look at it, take iPhone pictures. You can see just how incredibly small, this thing is in your hand. And, it weighs less than a nickel, it weighs nothing. And after, a period of time, it said, okay, boom, it was gone. Well, for the next 2 days, we kept seeing it. And I guess the day right after, I'm sitting there shooting, and there he is buzzing right, literally by my side, checking me out right in my face, to the point where even my reading glasses, I couldn't be able to see it. And there's no doubt he knew who I was. I mean, studies show that hummingbirds remember every flower they ever go to, just like they recognize and remember the one who comes out and fills their hummingbird feeders. So I have no doubt that this little Costa recognized me, for better or worse. So then this day where we had these little personal hummingbird feeders, yeah, he was right there drinking. And what's really cool were when he's in my hand or when he's at the feeder, you get a reality check. You realize real quick just how small this little hummingbird is. You're looking at it through binoculars, looking at it through a long lens. It fills the frame. It seems like a big bird until all of a sudden it's just 15 feet away, or 15 inches away, 15 inches away. Going to one of these personal feeders, you just see how small these little creatures are. So when you go out shooting, you have no no plan, no goal, no subject, no topic like I have for this podcast. How do you make things happen then? Well, first of all, you have to realize that you don't have to come back with pictures. There's nothing that says just because you pack the car with camera gear, you have to come back with a photograph. You can just go out and enjoy the freedoms that we're so fortunate to enjoy. Just look at the clouds going by, the grass is blowing in the wind, the birds doing their birds and bees thing, and not even get the camera out. That's okay. Because even doing that, you would be surprised how just that improves your photography. Charging your system, clearing out your mind, energizing your soul, all those things translate into better photography. Heck, when I take the people out to do the hummingbirds, one of the first things we do is we just stop we go out without cameras and with just binoculars and just watch the hummers and watch the flow of life and watch how they move. I do that with almost all critters. I sit there and, as time affords, I watch to see what they're doing, how they're doing it, before I even get the camera out. I do that a lot with landscapes. Soak it in, kind of let it infect you. Take in that world. Sometimes going out without a topic, a subject, a destination, letting serendipity and fate take over can be really rewarding. Yeah, there of course can be times where you do this, you come back with nothing. There's times when you've planned things to nth degree and you've gone out and you come back with nothing. There are times when I've spent a lot of money and traveled a long ways and got somewhere and got nothing. That's part of the process too, right? So always having a script, always, having an agenda, maybe that itself, not a good thing. Maybe just letting life unfold and kind of going with what your gut says is the best thing might be a great idea. When I think about the whole process, people always ask, and it's a real common question and it's valid. So that's why people ask it. How'd you get your start in photography? How did you get to where you are today? And I think a lot of times they ask that question thinking there was some grand plan, some schedule, some, goal that got me to, started. And I tell people it was serendipity. I just went with what what felt right at the time. I really thought I was going to go into advertising, fashion photography. That's what I studied for, practice on, and for 18 months slaved at. And then it's like, yeah, nope, I'm out of there. I had this opportunity go to photograph some critters, which I had done for almost my whole life, was to be with critters, not photograph them. I photographed some critters, and then boom, here I am. No different with aviation photography. Yeah. I would love to tell you it was some grand plan and I'm some mastermind, and no, I'm not. I, you could say plan luck. I had skills that when I volunteered to do something, boom, they came into play and I was able to maximize them, but it was all serendipity. And that's great. I guess the skill is knowing when to hold them and when to fold them, when opportunity knocks, when to actually aggressively go after it, and when to say, yeah, that's just not for me. So perhaps in these times where, if you're like me, you probably have more than just photography on your mind. There's probably a bunch of things on your mind, and a lot of it, part of it, is really distracting from photography. Then perhaps not having a topic, just putting that good old friend in your hand, clicking in your favorite lens, and just going out might be the best way to get the best photograph. One that you could never plan for, one that you'll never forget. So, there you go. There's my podcast for the week. What's the topic? I don't know. I'll let you figure that out. You guys have a great week. Thanks again for your continued support. And remember, every time you go click, make it your story.